All right, boys, speed up your commander games with this one neat trick. Let's go.
Commander! It's all there is now! Even
Yep.
Wizards of the Coast are trying to somehow rejuvenate Standard by making changes to it. They've realised they probably overcommitted to the non-competitive multiplayer format and kind of disregarded the rest.
Yeah, that's been a big problem for Commander. This honestly what I think is the biggest problem that a lot of people don't actually discuss when it comes to Commander is the fact that all of the competitive players have no other place to play their games because stores don't really hold standard events anymore. Modern events, they sometimes fire Pioneer. It's been firing a bit more lately, but for the most part, Commander players, well, I should say competitive players, have been relegated to Commander pods, and then they bring competitive ideals into Commander, and it clashes directly with the original vision of Commander, which is just big, dumb cards, battlecruiser magic. Anyways.
But we all love it. There is something inherently very fun about getting to play both Magic, one of the greatest game systems ever made, and play with your friends in an environment where you get to muck about and do dumb shit. Commander is not serious. It's not here to be played competitively for the most part.
I mean, that used to be true about 5-10 years ago, but it's taken way more seriously now. I mean, granted, not to the point where it, honestly, parts of me wants it to be taken more seriously to actually turn it into a competitive format, but that would probably just ruin Commander at its absolute foundation.
CDH exists and I respect it and enjoy it, but Commander is the muckabout social format. So naturally, Commander comes with this idea that conversation and chill hangs and good times with your friends come with it. Of course, there are situations where you play with randomers and strangers at your local game store. It's not your established friend group or pod. It might be new players, but overall,
I actually find that playing Commander with newer players and not just your established friend group is a way better experience, at least from what I've had by playing with my friends and stuff. There's this like special rapport that you kind of have to keep up with when you play with your friends. But if you play with strangers, you pretty much just play whatever you want. Everyone's pretty cool with it. So, honestly, I think playing with strangers is way better than playing with friends.
everyone's there to have quite a chill time playing Magic. Of course, there are sweats, but you get them and everything, right? But one of the other
Sweats are absolutely necessary when it comes to Commander. They are the lawbringers. You need your mass land destruction, you need your counter spells, you need your cyclonic rifts. You have to have it. You have to have your turn 1, turn 2 combo players. It's absolutely necessary.
other big parts of Commander is that the games take a long time. In my opinion,
Absolutely.
too fucking long. And I
Absolutely.
think the conversational and casual element of that can really slow it down, but I don't think you should remove that from the game at all. I don't think that shouldn't be part of the format. It is, in essence, a part of the format. It's a reason to play this really much slower, much more casual version of Magic. If I want to have the challenge of the mental game of Magic, I'll play 1v1. That said, I do think
I think that brings up a really good point, and back to what I was talking about earlier with competitive players being integrated into Commander. Commander serves a completely different function than competitive 1v1 Magic, and honestly, I yearn more for 1v1 Magic or just 1v1 card gaming in general. I think a lot of people do as well, and a lot of that kind of bleeds over into the frustration with Commander that I've seen lately is a lot of people getting kind of tired of mixing things in different formats where they don't belong, and there's a part of me that non-ironically, wants to gatekeep and wants to just ram as many Armageddon cards in Commander as possible. But, honestly, at its heart with what Commander was and what it quote-unquote should be today, we need to go back to competitive Magic. We have to have the majority of Magic players go back to playing competitive Magic versus the majority of Magic players playing Commander. Now, that's not to say that the actual majority of players are just playing regular, casual, kitchen table, 60 random cards of whatever I like. That's the majority of players. But when it comes to the dichotomy between Commander versus non-Commander, Commander has just taken way too much precedence as of late.
we can improve the game and the speed at which we play by implementing one simple rule that I thought was obvious. But when I tweeted about it a little while ago, some people didn't like that I said it. I've mentioned it to players at my local store, and not all of them kind of get it. It's one simple rule. If it's your turn, you don't converse. You'll say, I play. And when I play, I ain't saying. I'm not saying you can't announce your game actions or ask the conversation to be
It's not that bad.
Talk about what's happening. I'm saying you need to shut the fuck up. I'm going to unpack this whole conversation
It's
in today's video.
It's honestly more polite if you're just quiet and you just play. I find it way more easier to enjoy a game of Magic if players are just more kind of direct with how they actually play versus mixing up what they're actually doing with what kind of casual conversation comes about. It's I just don't think they mix well together.
We're going to talk about this, but first, a quick message from me and what I'm up to with Whatnot. This Thursday, I am live.
Sorry, I pay for YouTube Premium. I don't really feel like dealing with that.
Link down below. Your first purchase when people can't. Variety is the spice of life. I will often have 5 or 6 commander decks in my bag with the intention of playing at least 2/3 of them.
Those are casual rookie numbers. You have to have 30 commander decks in your person at all times. Fucking scrub.
In a night. I get that some people like one singular big game of Commander that's Battleship and Cruiser and no one's really attacking anyone or being antagonistic.
Those are the worst types of Commander games. The ones that go 2.5 to 3 hours where players are just pillow forting and building the biggest fucking things that they can and get really mad if you hit them or whatever. Those are the types of Commander players that I think you should avoid, and that's the type of Commander player that you should avoid becoming.
It's the, I've said this before, but it's the Magic the Gathering equivalent of playing Age of Empires and building up your bases and agreeing not to attack each other on your land party for the first 4 hours. You can replace Age of Empires in that with Civilization, Command and Conquer, even Civ, I guess. But personally, I'd rather
I've never played any of those games.
Reasonably quickly, we're done. Or turn 10 or whatever, we're just done. Someone wins, create a hoof combo, whatever. The attrition.
For real, like, Commander players just take way too long to committing to ending a game. They are effectively what you could just call them pussies at that point. You know, they're just too afraid to actually get the game moving. That's also a big kind of problem that I have with the dichotomy between casual and competitive players is competitive players, they just want to get the fucking game over so that way they can play more games. Whereas casual players, they want to drag one experience as far as possible. When I don't think you should be playing Commander at that point, you should just be playing a fucking board game. That's just me though.
Is done and we move on to the next game. The alternative to that is that I might have a deck that I've just built that I might want to get 3 or 4 or 5 reps in to get a feel for it, because when you're playing 100 card singleton, testing out cards is actually really difficult. The best way to do that is to
testing out Commander decks and playing a deck where you're testing out cards, I find is actually the most fun way to kind of play Commander, honestly. And I understand that I'm kind of conflating or contradicting a lot of what I'm saying here, but from my personal experience, when me and a whole new group are playing and they kind of don't know really what's going on, but they have the intention along with me to get the game moving, that's great. Because then that leads into these weird kind of organic situations where players kind of discover combos with their own cards or with certain board states. That right there is kind of the soul of Commander, in my opinion.
Speed up the games without damaging the flow of conversation and the hangs. So, for example, there's a few things you can do. First of all, roll 1 dice at the beginning of the game. Here's a free one for you. Don't roll 4 dice and then get a tie, have to roll again, and one player drops the dice. Nominate 4 players at the table, D20, divisible by 4.
Who the fuck is rolling more than 1 die?
15, 20, roll a dice.
Please, if you rolling more than 1 die, roll 1 die.
6 to 10 is
please.
Pairs. B, they're going first. Done. Absolutely done. No fucking about. Secondly, and this is just a bit of advice to new players, if you're new watching this or reasonably green, no, it's not an insult. We all are. I'm pretty good at Pokemon right now, I've recently picked up. But think about your turn ahead of time. Don't chat, and then when the turn has passed, you look.
I understand where he's going at with this, but also I find it kind of hard to be able to focus on what I'm doing while 3 other turns are developing at the same time, because after those 3 turns has developed, what I'm actually going to do with the cards in my hand changes from turn to turn. So I understand what he's trying to say, you know, get the fucking ball rolling, get going, get your turn done in 30 seconds. But hey, if 15 minutes have developed between my last turn and this turn, and there's like 20 more cards on the board, I have to reassess what I'm playing with what's in my hand.
Look at the 9 cards in your hand, 12 mana, 15 different fucking things in play and be like, I don't know what I'm doing. That's fucking dumb. Think ahead.
No, absolutely not. Sorry. I just can't do it. My dumb, retard, autistic brain just can't handle it. Sorry.
Plan ahead, just get a basic idea of what's happening so we can finish this game of Magic, because Magic games should end. But of course, if you
Absolutely.
are of the persuasion that Magic games don't need to end, and
Wrong.
you're happy playing one game of Commander that lasts 5 hours, because that's just what you and your friends like to do.
Again, play a board game. If that's the type of experience you want, where you want to play a super long game, don't play Commander. Or if you're going to play Commander, play with a very specific group and you all know exactly what you're getting into. You know, just play a board game. Just play a board game. You're going to have a way better experience than playing Commander as a board game. Playing Commander as a board game can be irate for somebody who just wants to enjoy Magic as it is.
Then more power to you. I'm not yucking your yum, but I think we should start to implement, and I really believe this, as a community, the house rule, the etiquette, the good manners, that when it's your turn, you don't carry on talking in the current conversation. You focus on what you're doing, you take game actions with the intention of moving towards passing the turn as reasonably promptly as possible. If someone is talking about something that you really want to engage with, that's reasonable. Say, oh, I want to come back to that when it's not my turn. Or after your turn, say, oh, can we go back to that thing you're talking about? I've got a point I want to make. You can do that. I don't know why I'm teaching you the basics of social interaction, but you're allowed to do that. And part of this social contract also involves us as other players at the table not fucking with the player whose turn it is. Like, this isn't an invite or an opportunity to troll them. You can't, like, start asking them questions and then when they go to answer, go, no, sir, you play. We are here to facilitate a good conversation.
Look, if you do that, there's a good chance that your play group is not going to invite you back again. There's just no qualms about that.
And a good game of Magic at the same time, and sometimes those two can be a little bit conflicting.
Nice scissoring there, I appreciate that.
Time restraints. Like, there's nothing worse than only playing Commander once a week for a 3-hour stint at your game store on a Thursday night or a Friday night. Maybe a 4-hour stint at best, and you play only one game of Commander. You've been looking forward to this all fucking week. I remember before I was a creator, I'm very lucky that Magic is my job now, but it used to be that I would daydream about playing Magic. I would be sat in my shit bank jobs or my shit supermarket jobs, and I would just be thinking about brewing, building, playing, and talking about Magic. So when it got to like playing at an F&M where I only get like 2 games, maybe I got the bye, or my opponent got Mana Squid, or I got Mana Squid, nothing really happened. It was a shame. And that happened with Commander too.
That is the absolute worst, is when those kinds of events happen and you are looking forward to a week or you're looking forward to a night of playing and then you just get completely fucking curb stomped by RNG. That sucks, and is honestly one of the biggest issues that I have with Magic and its land system, is that it leads to a lot of stories happening like that very often. But it's kind of hard to solve that problem without fundamentally changing what the hell Magic is in the first place.
I can remember nights where I'd only get 1 game in, or even 2 games in, and I'm like, that's just not enough. I haven't got my fill. We do live in a world now where digital Magic does give you that fill. It does give you that ability to play more games during the week. I play games at all times of the fucking night. I'll be having a shit at 1 o'clock in the morning playing Pokemon on my phone at the moment. I'm really liking the Pokemon TCG. There'll be videos on that soon. But Commander hasn't really got that. You can play Commander on...
Yeah, actually, the Pokemon TCG isn't really that bad. I remember playing it the first time about 5 or 6 years ago. I was playing one of those championship decks. I still have it. It's like a Blastoise, Keldeo, Mewtwo kind of combo deck. And that's what I learned about Pokemon, is that it's very similar to Yu-Gi-Oh! In which every fucking deck is a Storm deck, and everyone's playing like some form of legacy, especially in Yu-Gi-Oh! Everyone's playing a Storm deck that also has Force of Wills. It's actually really great for competitive players.
Modo, but I'll be honest, Commander on Modo has its own issues in taking fucking ages. It's not a fun thing to do. It's not a very good social experience either.
You want to have no fun at all? Play Modo. Modo is great for the Magic experience, but if you actually want to have fun, it is just straight up diminishing returns by the nanosecond when you play Modo. It's a fucking disgrace.
When you're playing with strangers, the social experience of playing with strangers at your store in paper Magic is a lot better than playing online where you're typing through a little text box. Oh god. Imagine if there was a good digital version of Commander through something like Arena. God, imagine the cost of it. Wizards would absolutely ruin us. Wizards would fucking milk every drop, every ounce.
I would love Wizards of the Coast to release a new client where it is either completely historic brawl multiplayer, or like how Stainless Steel games did with the old Duels of the Planeswalker games, where you could have a two-headed giant or arch enemy or plane chase, just some form of multiplayer. Because while I understand that developing games is extremely difficult and integrating a multiplayer aspect into Arena, it's kind of dumb that Wizards of the Coast back in 2016, 2017, 2015, when they were developing Arena for the first time, they didn't think to incorporate a multiplayer aspect. And I think that's going to hurt Arena in the long term if they don't incorporate that. Or if they do, they're going to have to completely revamp the game or re-release a new game. So that way you can actually play Commander in a fluid way online that isn't spell table.
Penny out of us. It'd be embarrassing. Anyway, what was my point? Oh yeah, don't talk during your turn. And some people misconstrued what I said on Twitter. I tweeted this like a month or two ago, back in April. And people were saying, well, like, they come to have conversation. Conversation is one of the big draws of going to their store or their game night, local group, friend's house, or whatever. And I'm not saying you can't have conversation. I'm saying when it's your turn, you take a back seat in that conversation. You become a bystander. You become that person who's checking their phone. But instead of checking their phone, you're playing the game of Magic. Your turn. On that note, on a side note that I haven't really thought about until I said that, I really dislike it when people are fucking around on their phones. Like, it's antisocial for the conversation, and it often leads to people not knowing what's going on in the game, want to backtrack to a point that something happened. Like,
I understand where he's going at with here, you know. If you got someone that's not really paying attention and then they come back in and they're like, oh, wait, can you actually take that back? I need to force will the third spell you play that turn. That's horseshit, right? You know, if you got some guy that's fucking scrolling or swiping all fucking game, do you really want to play with that guy? No, probably not. But honestly, when you're sitting there and you're playing a game of Commander and you are waiting 10 to 15 minutes for your fucking turn, what are you supposed to sit there and do? Flick your hands in your cards? Fucking jerk off? No, just get on your phone and scroll a little bit. You know, pay attention to what's going on. But, geez, some people, it's this weird extreme of either or. They're either hyper-focused on the game or they're hyper-focused on their phone. And, you know, with the people that are hyper-focused on their phone, I kind of want to break it in half. That's just me.
if someone is chatting within the social confines of the conversation around Commander, and they say, oh, whoa, go back a second, was there a trigger I could respond to? Oh, you know what? Fucking rewind. Back up. I am here to support
Fuck that.
If you were tweeting...
Hold on. Go back. I want to rehear what he just said there.
Want to backtrack to a point that something happened. Like, if someone is chatting within the social confines of the conversation around Commander, and they say, oh, whoa, go back a second, was there a trigger I could respond to? Oh, you know what? Fucking rewind. Back.
I guess. In those kinds of situations, you get like 1 or 2 free ones. But after that, you're an adult. You can take care of yourself. No takesies backsies after the first or second time. The first or second time are done so out of politeness. But otherwise, you really need to be paying attention.
Back up. I am here to support that. If you were just tweeting or scrolling Instagram or swiping left and right on fucking Tinder, I've had that. I had a friend who used to Tinder mid-EDH game. It's fucking annoying. If you miss things then, like, I have no fucking sympathy.
Let's be honest. If you're Tindering while you're playing Magic the Gathering, you're probably not paying attention to either thing at the same time. I've seen dudes just fucking Tinder like it's a goddamn racer, just going bam, 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 without even really looking at the people that they're swiping. They're just going bam, 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 bam. It's fucking sad.
For you, right? We are here to be social and play Magic. Not for you to be social with, like, strangers on the internet elsewhere. Fuck that. This rule is designed to allow conversation to flow whilst the game simultaneously flows as well. It is a big part of Commander that at some point you're going to have to ask, well, whose turn is it? But if you implement this rule correctly, that will lessen. That will become less needed because the person whose turn it is very clear because they're not engaged in the conversation right now. They're paying attention to their board state and they may even be taking game actions. And again, some people kicked back and said, like, they don't like it when people talk in their turn. And I mean, I think that's where you've got to have that conversation with the people you're playing with, right? Are we looking to have a game where we focus solely on the game actions, which is a completely valid way to play? I actually quite like that sometimes. It's a different dynamic. It's probably more akin to the CDH games where the games don't last very long because everyone is just doing...
I honestly think that should probably be the best way that Commander should be played, is that players should just be quiet and focus on the gameplay and then talk in between the games or before the game. not during the game. I feel like that would solve a lot of the problems is if players just kind of focus more on what they were actually doing and what was happening on the board. Turns may not take 15, 20 minutes at that point, but honestly, you're kind of just asking water to not be water at that point. There's this weird social stigma that people have with Commander, so they use it as an opportunity to talk. I get it. People live lonely lives, especially if you're playing something nerdy like Magic the Gathering, where it's one of your few social outlets to talk to other people. But for the most part, I think the experience would be way better if players just treated the game more as a game rather than a social opportunity. Because you can have both, but once you start having one supersede the other, it ruins the experience for both of those things.
Their shit and getting on with it. That's one way to play. But if you're in the social element where people want to chat and discuss and talk about Magic and the world or how your kids are or whatever, then people are going to converse in your turn. I think it's also completely acceptable from an etiquette perspective to pause other people's conversation, to butt in and be like, 1 second, I'm casting this.
Yeah, exactly. If I'm trying to win the game, or if I'm making a move that is going to significantly change the board state, I need those 3 other fucking people to pay attention. And if they can't, then I'm probably just going to move on to a different table because clearly they don't take the game or me seriously. It's a matter of respect. If they don't respect me enough to pay attention to me playing the game and trying to develop the game, why would I continue playing with those types of people?
Have any responses? And everyone was like, no, cool, whatever.
But that's also kind of saying that, you shouldn't just have this intrinsic, distrust towards people and them obviously saying like, this guy's an asshole. He's just not going to want to play with us because we're all not keeping our heads down and shutting up. That's not the point that I'm trying to make. The point that I'm trying to make is that there's a time and place for people to talk and there's a time and place for people to game, and they tend to mix the two way too much.
Whatever, carry on doing your thing. Like, again, I feel like I'm teaching people to suck eggs here, but it's interesting that people have annoyances with some of this stuff. Because I think ultimately it should work if we're all on the same page, or at least your play group is all on the same page. There's an additional version of this that I quite like. It was by a Twitter user called Brendan Burns, at SkidMacker, who said, I'll go further. No non-game talk for the first X turn. They said 10 with a question mark. That's probably too many. I like this idea that you all agree that we're going to get through our mulligan decision on our first 3-4 turns of land, Sol Ring, Cultivate, Farseek, or whatever, to the point that then decisions actually have to be made.
Absolutely. Those first few turns in Commander are the loading screen turns. It is just players trying to maintain their board or trying to build their board state. The first 3 to 4 turns are usually kind of the same fucking thing. After playing thousands of games, you kind of realize that the first few turns are pretty much fundamentally the same turns, and they just become loading screens, especially if people are playing searching cards or fetch lands or something that requires extra actions that take up to 30 seconds to a minute of playtime. Yeah, keep the conversation short. Just get your fucking lands out, get your artifacts out, and then start slamming your big stuff and start having a good chat.
The early turn should be so simple. It is absolutely fucking wild to me that sometimes I can play a game at my store and I can not get to my second turn for the first 10, 15 minutes of the game. Like, how fucking hard is it to resolve a mulligan, play a land, and pass? So cutting down on the external chit chat just to get the game into the bit that's fun. Because resolving ramp spells isn't that exciting, everyone. Anyway, that's my rather provocative on the front of it, but not that provocative when you think about it, way to improve our games of Commander. To get more games of Commander in, is just to shut the fuck up and take your game action.
Absolutely.
I love conversation and I love socializing. I just think that you need to shut up, Trevor, and pass the fucking turn. If you enjoyed the video, hit that like button.
Shut up, Trevor. Stop fucking dragging the game on. All right, everybody, that seems to be the end of the video. This is going to be the end of my commentary here. Vince and I, we seem to agree pretty unanimously on this decision. And I saw this video on my feed, and I figured I'd save it, have some sort of reaction to it, and I'm glad that I did. Anyways, my name's Stacy Snackies. You all have been wonderful, and I'll catch you on the flip side.